We're going to look at ratio, and we're going to look at 3 different scenarios that come up commonly in ratio. So the first one that we're going to look at is where they give you a recipe. So you can see here we've got the ingredients for making gingerbread men. We've got the ingredients that will be enough to make 16, but Hamish apparently would like to make 24. So we've got to work out how much of each ingredient we need to make 24 instead of 16. So the trick with these is seeing, if you like, the common factor between the 16 and the 24. And that common factor is 8. They both divide by 8. So this is the amounts for 16. So I'm now going to work out how much I would need if there were only 8 to make, which is half of the 16. So we want half of the flour, half of the ginger, half of the butter, and half of the sugar. So that's what we would need to make 8. Now you've got a choice of 2 ways of going from now. We want to make 24. So you could either simply add the 8 to the 16 amount, or you can take the 8 amount and multiply it by 3, whichever floats your boat. Okay, and so to make 24, we're going to need 270 grams of flour. That's 3 90s, or 90 and 180. We're going to need 60 grams of ginger, 3 20s, or 20 plus 40. And we are going to need 165 grams of butter. That's 3 55s, or 55 plus 110, whichever way you wanted to do it. And finally, we're going to need 45 grams of the sugar, 3 15s, or 15 plus 30, whichever strategy. So it's all about looking for the common factor between these 2 numbers, so that you can work it from that smaller common factor. You can work up to much larger amounts. So that's how we deal with it if it's that recipe type. So the next thing we're going to look at is what if they ask us what the ratio is in the first place. So here we've got a scenario where in a book club there are 24 men and 30 women, and they've asked us what is the ratio of women to men. So there are 3 simple steps that you need to take here. The first 2 might seem a bit tedious, but they're there to prevent mistakes. So the first one is to write down what the ratio is in words or abbreviations. So we've got women to men, so I could use that there, or if I was going to abbreviate it, I might do W and M like so. Okay, if they're nicely set out like these are, you can just kind of highlight them in the question and then work, but you need to space to work down underneath. Okay, so once we've got it in words, we go and find the numbers that work with those words. So the women is 30 and the men is 24. So that's step 2. So step 1 was writing it. Step 2 is finding the numbers. And sometimes, as in the next example, we'll see we've got to do a little bit more work to get the numbers. And then the third step is we simplify, just like you would with fractions. So we work out what number divides into both of these. These are both in our 6 times tables, so that will simplify to our 5 to 4 ratio. Really crucial to do this first step to make sure that you get the ratio the right way round. Because notice in the question they had the numbers the other way round, but they wanted women to men. If you give them men to women, you won't get the marks because you won't have the full, the correct answer there. So let's do one more like this. Here we've got a batch of 1,500 iPods and 45 of them are faulty. And we've got to work out what the ratio of faulty to perfect iPods is. So we start by writing it down either in words or abbreviations. So I'm going to use F for faulty and P for perfect. Now we need to find those numbers. So the faulty is easy to find, that's 45. Now, how many perfect ones were there? Okay, well the perfect ones are the ones left over. So it's not 1,500, but it's 1,500 take away the 45, which leaves us with 1,455. So that's what's going to go here. So we've got our numbers in here now. So step 3 is simplifying. They both end with 5, so that's the clue that they both divide by 5. So we'll look at this over here. That one's the easier one. That's 9. So 5s into 14 go 2 with 4 over. 5s into 45 go 9. 5s into 5 go 1. So now we're going to check again, see if we can make it simpler. And if I add up these digits here, they make 12, which is my clue that I know that they divide by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then we're going to divide this by 3. So 3s into 29 go 9 with 2 left over. 3s into 21 go 7. 9 and 7 make 16, so that doesn't divide by 3, so that's as low as we can go. So just these 3 simple steps will help you to figure out what ratio it is you need in its simplest form, and they always want it in its simplest form. So the third type of ratio question. So in this type of ratio question, they give you the ratio, but you've got to work out the quantities or amounts that you need in the situation. So the first bit we've got here, question we've got here, is the ratio of adults to children for a trip has to be 2 to 7. And we know that there are 56 children, so we've got to figure out how many adults are needed. Now we're going to start this similar to how we did the previous question. So we're going to get the ratio down. So it's adults to children, and that's 2 to 7. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look for the extra piece of information and match it. So here's the extra piece of information. It's 56 children. So it matches with the children. So we're going to write it underneath. Now I'm deliberately leaving a bit of space there. What we've got to work out now, in this case, is what the multiplier is. So 7 times what will give us 56? And the answer is 8. All right? So we simply need to now take that multiplier and apply it to the other part, because that's the whole point of a ratio. You've got to do the same to both parts. So 2 times 8 is 16. So we need 16 adults to go with those 56 children. Okay, so we're going to do another one, just because there's a little extra twist that can come in sometimes. So here we're trying to create a custom paint colour that uses blue, red and yellow in the ratio of 6, 3, 1. And we've got to work out how much we need of each of those colours to make a 5-litre tin. So we're starting the same way as before. So we've got blue to red to yellow, and that's 6 to 3 to 1. Just doing these first steps, just make sure that we don't make any silly errors. Now, the next step is to find the spare bit of information, which this time is the 5-litre tin. And we've got to figure out where that matches to. Now this is the tin of the new paint colour. So it's not blue, it's not red, it's not yellow, it's what you get when you mix them all together. Now I just usually call this T for total every time. So before we put in the 5 litres, we need something to match it to it. So how many parts have we got in total? If we add these up, we've got 6 plus 3 plus 1, so we've got 10 parts in total. And those 10 parts match up to our 5 litre. So you'll notice that in this case, instead of having a multiplier, we're going to have a divider. 10 divided by 2 gives us 5. So to work out how much we need of each colour, we're simply going to divide each of them by 2. So that means we're going to need 3 litres of the blue, 1.5 litres of the red, and 0.5 litres of the yellow. And you notice if you add these together, you get your total of 5 litres. So if you can try and keep it nice and neat and in its lines like this, you won't have trouble with this. So it's all about matching your extra piece of information to the correct thing. So sometimes it's a part, like it was in this case, but often it can be the total at the end that it matches to. And sometimes it's multiplied by something to get this number here. Sometimes we need to divide. Just depends on the situation you've got.